Hey there, I'm Steve, and welcome to Gemstone Entertainment. And welcome to the conversation. Just before we get started, there are many ways you can help. You can like and subscribe so you never miss a conversation. But most importantly, please share this video. Get the word out there so we can talk about all things that we love. Today on Throwback Thursday, we're looking at Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. In addition to Mel Gibson and Bruce Spence, who more or less is playing the same character. I mean, he's an aviator. They never say his name. He doesn't have the gyro anymore. He has a teeny tiny plane and he has a son, which you can extrapolate from there that the woman he ended up with in The Road Warrior had a son with him, and this is like 5 or 6 years later, which is about the time between these movies. Anyway, also starring Tina Turner, Frank Thring, Angelo Rizzuto, Paul Larson, Angry Anderson, that's gotta be a stage name, Robert Grubb, Edward Hodgman, Helen Boudet, Rod Zwanek, sorry if I mispronounced your name. This one's the most different out of the Mad Max. Towards the end of this one, an argument could be made that this happens after Fury Road. Here are the reasons why. Max loses the Interceptor in The Road Warrior. He also loses the Interceptor in Fury Road, which I guess Fury Road is not as much of a soft boot as I thought it was, because the fact that he has the Interceptor at the beginning of Fury Road means that something was retconned along the way, so it's more of a reboot than I thought. Although this does lead to the episodic explanation that George Miller has. You can watch them in any order, again with the exception of the first Mad Max and Furiosa, because the first Mad Max sets everything off, and Furiosa is a direct prequel to Fury Road. It is the Rogue One of the Mad Max series. But as I was watching this, and before I thought maybe this could happen after Fury Road, I was like, how could this possibly be episodic? Now, I've been watching them one a week, so I can see all the connections there. I can also see all the inspirations. For instance, this character. George Miller obviously extrapolated on this, and hence the War Boys in Furiosa and Fury Road. Let's go over, for argument's sake, that it's chronological in this order. You obviously have the first one. In the first one, towards the end, he gets shot in the left leg. In the second one, he's wearing a leg brace on the same leg. So that is obviously a sequel to Mad Max. Beyond Thunderdome, this you could argue comes after Fury Road simply because the Interceptor is not in this movie at all. The thing is, if these movies, see that's the thing, it comes back to the History Man, which Mad Max Fury Road is the first mention of a History Man. In Fury Road, I mentioned that the reason why Max looks different, why he can be Tom Hardy instead of Mel Gibson, the History Men. I think George Miller got this idea from Fahrenheit 451. Spoiler alerts for Fahrenheit 451. It's a dystopian story. They burn books. The main character, Montag, questions the authorities. He escapes with a book to a group of people where everyone has a book memorized. And so he has to memorize the book that he escaped with. And at least in the movie, it shows an elderly person teaching a young person the book that they memorized so that the book lives on. Thus, the idea of the History Man, I think, is where George Miller got it from. And as I mentioned in the Fury Road review, I wasn't sure where the start of the History Man was. So I guess it really is episodic, because in this one, you have a young woman, Savannah Nix, that finds Max in the desert. I'm getting ahead of myself in the story, but the point of bringing her up is she does what's called the tell. She is with a group of children in the wild where there is green and water and abundance. These children have created their own tribe, and they kind of have, it's bad English, let's call it that. The older children remember somewhat of the old world, and the tell is the history of that world, or at least what they can remember. They have this apparatus at the end of a stick that is a big rectangle, and it's supposed to be like the television. And over in Australia, Scotland, Ireland, England, probably even New Zealand, a slang word for a television is the telly, and I guess it's shortened further here as the tell. And so she's kind of like a History Man. Where was I going with? I lost my train of thought. So I'll just get on with the plot of it. Since Max doesn't have the Interceptor anymore, he now has another vehicle that is being towed by a bunch of camels, which is a very clever way of getting around and conserving gasoline, which that term is not brought up in this film. I don't know why. Probably because, for the most part, the vehicles are only in the last 10 minutes of this film. That's neither here nor there. The gyro captain, even though he's not called that, he's called Jedediah? Yeah. Steals Max's ride and all of his belongings, takes it to Bartertown, which is the first civilization since the fall of humanity, or at least in this part of Australia, sells it. Max makes his way there and he wants his stuff back, and so he barters with Auntie Entity. She has a problem. There's this guy or guys named Master Blaster. There's a little person that sits on the back of a giant, more or less. The little person is called Master. The big dude is called Blaster. Master is the brains, making Blaster the bronze. They live in the underbelly of Bartertown, providing the power, which is fueled by pig waste. There's a power struggle between Auntie Entity and Master Blaster. Because he controls the power, he really is in charge, despite the fact that she wants to be in charge. That's why she strikes a deal with Max, who does not use his name at all in this movie. Which, the more I think about this, the more it's like, no, this does come before Fury Road. Because Max doesn't use his name in Fury Road until the very end. I think it's just the fact that I need some kind of order to this story, that I'm just finding the connections. Like, if the first Mad Max didn't exist, or after the second one, they really didn't make them episodic. I think the term for movies would be anthology, where it's the same world but there's different stories, and it may even follow the same character. But there is a connection between each and every movie, and it just racks my brain because it doesn't fit perfectly, and I just... ugh. I want it to fit well. Ultimately, Max challenges Master Blaster, or more accurately, Blaster, to a duel. And this is where the Thunderdome part comes in. And this is why, among other things in this movie, this is the most goofy out of the movies. Thunderdome. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. And the only rules are, there are no rules. And why is it so goofy? Both of them are in these bungee harnesses, and it's in a domed cage. Weapons are put up high, and the idea is you're supposed to fight, and if you can get to a weapon, you can use the weapon. And from what I could tell, it was Mel Gibson doing everything in this scene. I mean, an argument could be made that the faraway shots, or the shots where you can't see his face, are definitely a stunt guy, but I'm not entirely sure. But that's fun to watch. Something happens where Max breaks his deal, and I forget what to call the wheel, but there's a... oh, Auntie says, break the deal, spin the wheel. And there's a bunch of horrible things on there. The one that Max lands on is gulag. If you know what a gulag actually is, you are just as confused as I am when you find out the gulag in the Mad Max universe is just exile into the desert. I'm going to leave it there with the plot. I had a blast with all these movies. I recommend you get the High Octane Collector's Edition. It's 100% worth it. You're going to enjoy these movies. Those are my thoughts on Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and live your imagination.